Welcome, everyone. Today, we're joined by Michael Krajicek, who's the founder, CEO, and product designer of Atreyu Running Company, which is a local Austin-based company fueled by curiosity and dedication to maximizing human potential through simplicity and hard work. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you so much, Jeff.
You have a passion for challenging the status quo and inspiring others to dream big. And Michael is here to share his insights on achieving extraordinary results both in business and in life. And then we're also going to figure out how on earth do you become a shoe entrepreneur. So with that, welcome to the podcast, Michael.
It's a privilege to be here, right down the road here in beautiful Austin, Texas. It's a great day to be doing this.
Keystone Podcast Studio?
That's it, man.
It's your first time in the Keystone Podcast
That's
Studio?
Right, yeah.
You know, we're so proud of you. I've been wanting to get you on the podcast. I've followed your career for years. I know your brother, but I also know that you're independent of your brother and your own spirit and entrepreneurism, and I just can't wait for the world to get to know who you are.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, it's my brother. He's probably going to be in the through line of the conversation.
Maybe
in here a little bit.
I don't know. I mean, this is about you, though.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
You're very, very, very talented. So your company, Atreyu Running Company, we've been with you since inception. Keystone Bank. We've been your bank since inception. And, you founded it on the principles of curiosity, simplicity, and hard work. Can you share the story behind the inception of Atreyu and how these values shape your approach to business?
In a way, Atreyu as the brand, as the products, it started well before the shoe company. It started mostly on the value system.
Yeah.
And because even though I have to have some type of a title, shoe designer or CEO, our company's very small. I just see myself as a part of the team, and it started based off of this kind of long winding path. Probably starting at the age of 26 when I started to get a lot of things together, and the values are very, very dear to me. I had this mentor in my early 20s, and he used to say, simplicity is the key to happiness and success. And he said it every day. I was working at a little hot dog stand in New Orleans. It was a startup, and he was always saying it. It was a really cool guy, and it was a really cool experience. One of the first cool jobs that I ever had, and I got to see it from the ground up. And this was before I had my own hot dog parlor, a few years later.
We're gonna get into that. It's all part of the entrepreneurial journey.
And it all started with this. He kept saying simplicity is the key to happiness and success. And I thought it was just one of these maxims or something, but it stuck with me. He told me things like, when you're driving around a parking lot, when we used to go to the restaurant supply store, he'd park at the last parking lot, or the last parking spot, and says, there's always going to be a spot here. And you get to get a little exercise in while you walk. Don't take the easy way. Don't be a vulture. Just don't be one of those parking lot vultures. And he said the best way to see a city, and we were in New Orleans at the time, was get on a bicycle. And he's like, you can't really run it. You can't really walk it. A bike is the perfect way to experience a new city. Simplicity is the key to happiness.
I would vouch with that. I've tried to run in New Orleans. My wife and I are running and the cobblestones, the uneven roads are a bit of a challenge.
And they'll get the trolley line will get you many times.
So simplicity, curiosity, hard work, I think I've heard those themes a number of times from entrepreneurs. So that drives you, and that really, it was more of a value system. You're like, it was, and then, so where does running come from? We're going to talk more about your background, but where does the running aspect of this come from, and the name Atreyu, where does that come from? Well, I know our listeners would love to hear a little bit more about those two things.
There's an opaque zone when it all started happening. I had my hot dog restaurant, and I started running.
So you didn't grow up. You weren't a runner.
I wasn't a runner. In fact, I was fairly sedentary until about 26.
Okay.
I decided to get sober and live an abstinent lifestyle of mind-altering drugs and chemicals.
Got it.
At 26 years old. And I had this hot dog restaurant that I had built myself. It was a startup. based off of some prior experience.
And this was in Lake Charles,
yes,
Louisiana.
That's correct. And coinciding with the restaurant inception, it was when I started to realize that I was going to these outpatient groups.
Got it.
About 3 nights a week for 3 hours a night. And I was working on the mental part. The mental part was just humming.
Got it.
And I went a few months in, had this restaurant, things were looking up. My mind was right. My brain was firing, all the chemicals and everything were firing in the right way. But one night I was sitting on my floor. It was a Saturday night. It was like 10 p.m. I was like, I need something. I couldn't explain it. My body just kind of like said, lace up some shoes and go for a run around the lake.
Interesting.
And I went for a run. And it was I have goosebumps thinking about it. It was the most like exhilarating feeling I've ever gotten, because for the first time I was like really exercising or running for something so just like an inherent desire. I needed to do it, and I realized that I needed to bridge the mental.
So that's when you started running.
Yeah,
interesting. And you didn't run before, and then all of a sudden you go for this life-changing run around Lake Charles,
right?
And then boom, here we are on the podcast,
right?
And you've created this incredible brand.
Yeah, I fell in love with
community of running, and running has become an enormous part of your life.
100%. I think running is a very special act. I think running is special because it's such a like an accessible thing to do. I call it a simulation of a perfect world, because I don't think that the world is necessarily easy. I don't necessarily think that it's always work. It's not always war. It's not always peace. Running is a simulation that you can go through every day. And what I was using it as every day, as I was literally giving up the keys to the restaurant to the lunch rush, and I'd say, I don't care what happens. I trust you guys. I'm going for a run.
Interesting.
And I was using it to kind of help. Yeah, and it was more of like a way for me to let go, practice letting go. I was taught in my groups, what we practice, we become.
Yeah.
And I needed to be more patient. I needed to be more, need to learn how to delegate.
Well, you're not just a runner. I mean, you're really good. You've been an inspiration. We've followed you. My wife and I are both runners.
Yeah.
We started right across the street here from the Keystone Podcast Studios with Rogue Running in 2008.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And I had to brag on my wife a little bit. She's running the Boston Marathon April
that's fabulous.
for her first time.
Oh, it's good.
So
it's such a wild journey. That race it's where the oracles of running live.
Pretty amazing that she's been able to accomplish that.
Yes.
At this point in her life, you know, as we've been running for only really since 2008, but really just put her mind to it about a year and a half ago, and then boom, wakes up one day and she's qualified for Boston. Not only for this year, but the following year.
Yeah.
So I'm really we've been watching and following you though. So Atreyu, tell me a little bit about the name Atreyu. I want our listeners are like, what in the world?
I know.
Is this from the Never-Ending Story? And so
in part,
yeah.
And I think I loved that movie when I was a kid.
Okay.
I was looking for a strong name. I have a degree in music.
Okay, from
Berklee College of Music in Boston.
Wow. So what did you play?
Guitar.
You're a guitar player.
So when you go to Berklee, you pick like a major with a principal instrument.
Okay.
And so I was a guitar and a songwriting major in the composition kind of department.
While we're on this topic, where are you from originally?
I'm from Lake Charles.
You're from Lake Charles.
Yeah.
And you went to Berklee Music.
Right.
And do you still play guitar?
I do.
Awesome.
I was playing before this podcast to get my mind right.
Do you do electric, acoustic?
All of it.
So do you play in any bands or anything, or do you record your music? You used to, but not anymore.
There was a bridge in between the restaurant business and Atreyu, the shoe company. I played 500 gigs in 2 years.
My goodness.
It was a wild ride.
Did you play all genres, or did you have a particular lane that you liked to be in?
I liked to set up my equipment, get in the crowd, and I would say, Jeff, what are you listening to these days?
And then you'd play it.
And if I don't know the song, I'd find something that had influence on that song. I'd have something
That's pretty
that
cool.
an influence of that artist that I knew of, and I would say, well, did you know this story? And then I would string the whole night, 2 or 3 hours together of just putting together a storytelling set.
That's pretty awesome.
And that's the way that I kind of was able to break out of like my shell, and that was before Atreyu. So,
Got it.
And you asked, and the reason I mentioned that was because the name is a bit esoteric in terms of I have an artist background. I don't have a business major. I am more of a creative, emotionally driven kind of.
It takes all kinds, brother.
Yeah, and when I was trying to come up with the name, I see brands as kind of characters. They're stories. They take on a life of their own, and I always thought of a brand as having a name. A good brand needs a good name. It's the character of the story. And it's like Atreyu, that's a strong name. It had a free test search, and it's like none of the trademarks were taken. In this day and age, it's like
That's hard to do.
it's very hard to do, and it just felt right, and I had to go with the gut. If that makes sense, I had to, and over time, my goal is that the name becomes synonymous with the story of the brand, because I like to operate within our circle of influence, and that is a story with our
I love
our athletes.
I love the name. Big fan of the shoes. I've got tons of pairs of them. I've worn them all out, and I'm about ready to order another pair. And I just ran 8 miles Sunday with your newest model.
Oh, the race model.
But so shoes. I get shoes. So shoes are, because there's this emotional thing about, hey, this was a major point in my lifetime when I was looking into the future, and I was drug into it by going around the lake with this run.
Oh yeah.
And I'm gonna pay homage to that for as long as I can. So shoes, that's where shoes comes from.
Mixing business and pleasure.
Business, and pleasure. Your vocation is your vocation.
Sure.
Yeah. So but shoes is an enormously big marketplace. So going up against the industry giants can be daunting. I mean, you have this idea. So how do you go? How do you challenge the status quo with shoes? I mean, Nike, Brooks. Come on, let's ASICS. Let's go across the board. And there's so much competitiveness and so much, and then of course they differentiate themselves over time. And then one's on top, and then next it's Adidas or New Balance, or then now it's Nike and the running shoes.
Yeah.
So you're out there. How do you challenge the status quo? How do you differentiate Atreyu, in this super competitive marketplace?
Oh, first of all, the stats are pretty staggering. If you look at their revenues, we're not even in the same league. We don't even represent a fingernail on the body of the industry at this point.
Yeah.
And I like that. In fact, I think that's where kind of the curiosity comes in. I don't believe we go into something having all the tools. I think that we find the tools along the way.
Got it.
And we we learn, and mistakes create wisdom.
If you set back and tried to solve for everything that you didn't have, you'd never start. Is that?
You'd never start.
That message.
And so in my mind, I was thinking, what would be a great life? I always have this concept of a novel life. The great John Hartford, he's a songwriter. He wrote Gentle on My Mind, the Glenn Campbell song. He was a steamboat captain, riverboat pilot, and a banjo player. He was awesome. I don't see it as being in competition with somebody. I wanted to live life like John Hartford. I wanted to sell shoes out of the back of my truck and have a little sign at the races that said, I'll see you at the finish line. We'll start selling again after I finish the race.
I'm going to go run.
And that was it. It was just operating within my circle of influence. And that's all I wanted to do. And I never even did that. I never sold one shoe out of the back of my truck at this point. And in that, it's crazy how it works out, because when I linked up with my brother, we got talking, we started jamming on ideas. We were like, in the beginning, we were actually probably, aside from a children's shoe subscription platform, we were actually the first running shoe subscription.
Which was a great
to go
concept.
Into the market.
Yeah.
It was a great concept, but it was flawed fundamentally in the business practices of it. And so we've since gotten rid of that for various reasons, which is probably another conversation for another time.
Yeah.
But
I can get shoes better, easier now than I could under the subscription
Exactly.
model. So
Yeah,
I see where you were. I mean, I love the concept, and maybe it comes back around later as there's more volume in your manufacturing system and distribution tight, and maybe as you mature, maybe you could get back
I mean, holding that much inventory it's really crazy.
I like now I can just go online typically and grab what I want, pick it off the shelf and order it,
and it also puts the accountability onto us, and we have to find our differentiators. So we're still refining that value proposition, but operating within our circle of influence, which is our community and our storytelling narrative and all that good stuff. So I think that even though I didn't really get to sell any shoes out of the back of my truck,
you still can.
You still can. It's all a part of the story. And
it is.
Again, I think that
maybe there's a young budding runner here in Austin, Texas, that wakes up one day and goes, I want to do that.
That's what I hope.
Maybe there's somebody out there that you don't even know today that's going to wake up and go, I want to be that.
That to me, that's why I do it. Like 100%. When people ask me, why do you get on YouTube and do your thing? Why do you market this way? Because I truly, when I was thinking back before I started, I did think, like, who goes up against Nike in this market? You're not going to make anything that's going to outperform them. They have an R&D budget. They have all the stuff. They have the marketing budget. And I think it's about more than that. It's about being curious, and curiosity is better in the headlights than it is in the rearview mirror. That's like when you look back and you're like, I wonder what I could have done. That to me is regret.
I mean, David had to be pretty curious, didn't he, when he was thinking about slaying Goliath, right? I mean, he had to be pretty curious about that. So. Like, he was probably soul searching there going, can I do this?
Yes.
I'm going to try.
Yes, exactly.
So curiosity is a big part. I hear that theme from a lot of successful business book, and I hear it from entrepreneurs all over, just being curious. Tell us a little bit about what that means to you and your business.
Oh, well, I think curiosity first came to me personally, on a personal level, when somebody said, what kind of man do you want to be?
Oh,
and this was coinciding with the sobriety kind of crossroads.
Got it.
And I never really thought about that question for a long time.
My goodness, how
but
many
if you
times
really
you ask
think about what kind of man do you want to be, I realized that I wasn't as honest as I wanted to be, as healthy as I wanted to be, as
I'm going to take that
a good of a family member. You know what I mean?
Totally.
And so if you really start to ask yourself that, and you wake up the next day and you say, I want to do my best.
That's a hell of a gem. That's a really great put you on your heels question.
And so I try to apply the same thing in my business endeavors, which to me
makes you curious, never to be complacent.
Exactly.
And to sit back and always wonder.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
And just see where it goes. Like, I don't necessarily dictate where I'm going. I just try and look for the right opportunities. And I think the bigger the curiosity, the bigger the goal, the more I have found personally in the past 4 years of doing business as Atreyu, that the bigger the goal, the heavier the emphasis lies on the fundamentals, the practicality, the execution. I think those two things are like very interdependent. And so there's this beautiful mix of, to be curious is to be just wondering what is the art of the possible. But I've often found, in order to be fully curious, you have to really take a step back, break it into tiny parts. I think that huge goals are a series of tiny victories strung together in a meaningful way.
Great
That's
advice.
always what I kind of like try and tell people. If how'd you do this? I don't really know, but I do know that if I want to get from point A to point B, there's an infinite amount of bullet points in between them that are very digestible. And if you can hone in on those and kind of execute on each one, then you're going to end up someplace. You're going to learn something.
That's great.
And you're not necessarily going to end up where you think you're going to be, but you're definitely going to learn something. And I'm just kind of like, I'm a student of my own business. And that's what I didn't really realize in the beginning, is that I get to be a student of it.
That's awesome. So you've given a lot of really neat gems already in this podcast, in terms of, if people are listening, things that they can pick up on, aspiring entrepreneurs, even successful entrepreneurs. And I love those. What advice would you have for any aspiring entrepreneurs or individuals that, that are striving to make a meaningful impact in what they're doing in their respective fields? I mean, you've talked about curiosity.
Yeah, sure.
You talked about a number of things. What kind of man do you want to be?
Yeah.
I think that those are some really, really great gems. But again, just to summarize, what if somebody's listening out there, go, I'm ready to do this, but I'm not sure. What would you tell them?
Find a mentor.
Really? Like you had that helped you?
I still have. Every week I talk to my brother.
That's awesome.
He's a co-owner of Atreyu, and he is not only he's my bigger brother. He's 9 years older than me, but he's also my business mentor, and I couldn't be more lucky to have.
You're pretty lucky in that
I am
regard,
extremely
because he is
lucky.
quite successful in business.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and I don't ever take that for granted.
But he shares. It's interesting now that I know I know both of you. But you both are just incredibly passionate people.
Yeah. I think I get that from him.
Yeah.
I grew up wanting to be like my older brother.
Interesting.
Like, that was the thing. He was like Gen X, had all the cool music.
He'd probably say that about you. I always wanted to be like my little brother.
No.
Passion is important, and go for it. And get a mentor.
I think having a mentor is important. I think that my dad used to have this little thing on the wall. He plastered on the wall one night, and it said, "Mistakes are the building blocks of wisdom." I don't think we come into the game having all the tools. I don't think that. I think that it's important to make mistakes and to learn from them, and to really show humility about those mistakes. And the other thing for anybody that I've found is that sobriety, to me, has taken on a whole nother life. I don't even see it as a sobriety anymore. This is me. I see it as just something. It's preserving my health. It's taking. It's the integrity of my health. I think that people can become brutally honest about what they're doing with their minds and their bodies, and I think that is of utmost importance. And if you protect your mind and you protect your body, then it will take you places where it's a superpower.
It's not a negative. I mean, sobriety is not a negative. It's bringing out who you are. It's allowing the world to see all of you.
Yeah, and to me,
which is a lot more than I think you thought you probably were or right? And now the rest of us get to see all of you, and we get to see more and more of you, and it keeps drawing out more and more of you every day that goes by.
And we're all so similar. Yeah. In what I learned in sobriety, it's the underlying tendencies and the codependencies that really everybody across the board, sober, not sober, it doesn't matter what kind of person you are. We always have the ability to see clearly our thoughts. Thoughts motivate behavior. And objectively taking a look at like what we're thinking and what we're feeling and becoming more attuned with those can help us make decisions moving forward. And I think moving forward in those decisions instead of looking back with regret is a huge deal, because that's the way that the world goes. It goes forward. It's just we're moving, it's going to happen, and we're going to learn something from it.
Well, it's great advice. Just get started and keep going and learn and have a mentor. I mean, we could get into a whole podcast about how do you find a mentor. Sometimes it's about just reaching out to somebody that you respect and saying, "Hey, will you be my mentor?" Sometimes it's as simple as that. It's
definitely hard too. I've had a few mentors, and they've not all worked out. And sometimes for an emotional guy, like I feel really bad about that sometimes. But I do think that we have.
But you need what you need.
You need what you need,
and you can't just
asking for help. You gotta I was also told in my sobriety things, asking for help is the hardest thing we'll ever learn how to do. It's part of that humility aspect of it. And I think mentors can really, the right ones will push on us in the right direction, I think.
My favorite, the thing that I've been leading up to this whole podcast is I want to talk to you a little bit about the whole Austin running community and how you integrated into that. For me, I felt like, and I'm just a novice, but to me, I felt like it was a relatively fun group of people when we started running with Rogue Running, in 2008, my wife and I, and we just had a blast running through that. Tell us a little bit about your journey in the Austin running community. I think the Austin running community is strong. I think it's getting stronger. But I'd love to hear a little bit more about how much you run, what you run, like who you run with, and tell us a little bit about your journey through the Austin running community and where this current state of affairs of the Austin running community is from your perspective, kind of where it's going.
It's such a beautiful thing. When I moved to Austin to start Atreyu, that was the first decision. The second decision was to get a job over at Rogue.
Oh, no kidding.
And so I was working the retail floor. I knew nothing.
Oh, man. That's
so I needed to go do market research. I met the Rogue group. I met all the friends of the Rogue group. I met the other Rogue groups. And then I realized that this scene is nothing like any other town. And it all comes from the old run techs, like Paul Carosa.
That's right.
All these folks that like...
You need to go try Jimmy and Jordan over at Helix Sports Medicine. They do an amazing job. They're a customer of ours at Keystone Bank. They're really killing it in the marketplace. It's a combination of physical therapy and chiropractic, and their practice is just taking off, and they have an amazing following in the running community and beyond the running community. They work with a lot of athletes of all kinds, professional quarterbacks. But Jimmy and Jordan at Helix Sports Medicine is worth a shot if you're trying to figure out how to take care of those aches and pains as a runner.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, it's great to know that Keystone network of partners is well rooted in the endurance industry.
That's right.
The scene here is so multidimensional, and I never knew what I got myself into until I started going deeper and deeper. In terms of what we do practically, the brand is here. I think that a brand equity of Atreyu is Austin, Texas. That is something that I'm continuing to work on. I think I could do a much better job at community engagement. We have a run club.
You do?
And we do.
Okay.
And
tell us about your run club.
We meet Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. It's free.
Where do you guys meet?
We meet
different places.
Typically at a place called The Rock.
Yeah,
and then,
sure. Which is underneath the Mopac Bridge, right?
Exactly. Then we meet at Carpenter Hall one day. In the summer, we go to Barton Springs. And
is it called Atreyu Running Club?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, cool.
It is.
I've seen it on Facebook.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Atreyu Run Club.
You get up too early for me.
Oh, I know. I think we all get up too early for our own good. But there are other things about the community that I think that investing in our communities it's an idea that's been challenged by the digital ether.
Yeah.
And it's easy to overlook how foundationally important that is.
Yeah.
I had a conversation the other day. It's like a tree. The roots are what we do in town. You don't often see the fruits of that in the business or the online or the e-commerce. Like you don't always see the fruits of that, but it is essentially the roots. It feeds all of the nourishment up to the trunk and everything. So I'm realizing how important Austin is to our equities, and it's something that personally I want to be more invested in. I know a lot of people in the running community, but I feel like I need to find ways of giving back to it because the ones that do, the Paul Carosas, these people, they become earth movers, mountain movers. Like they create the essence of why Town Lake Trail, which is one of the most important running paths, I think, in this country, one of the most
right here in Austin, Texas.
Right here in Austin, Texas, 10 miles if you wanted of unbroken terrain.
Yep.
Is absolutely one of the most iconic places.
It's amazing.
Run.
I ran it last night. We did a small run with my son last night around the Town Lake Trail.
And that is essentially why when I decided the first decision that was made in the Atreyu Continuum was move to Austin, Texas, establish roots in Austin, Texas.
And get on the trail. That trail is amazing. It is truly amazing. You can get to that trail pretty easy right over here from Rogue Running. I mean, you can get to it anywhere. You can run it 10 different directions. You can do a 3-mile loop, a 4-mile loop, a 5, a 7, and a 10-mile loop. Or you can run it twice to get 20 miles. It's amazing. Water along the way.
Yes.
Full of people.
And one of the reasons I think Austin is so healthy, it's got a feeling to it, is because running is one of the activities that I think people can do in the digital world that we live in. We live on our phones, we live on our computers and the stats and the facts. When we run, it is a very basic idea of getting in touch with nature. And when you have thousands of people running on the same trail on a Saturday morning, it is it's an experience with nature like that you can't hardly explain until you just do it.
Yeah, I just see so many influencers in the running community moving to Austin, Texas, and see running around the trail and Rogue Running. There was one of the coaches at Rogue Running for years who was a Olympic qualifying level runner, Allison Maxis, and her husband, started Rogue Expeditions. I've been fortunate enough to go on one of them, and my wife's done too, but Rogue Expeditions was spawned right here in Austin, Texas, and now they take groups from all over the world.
Yeah.
They go all over the world and they do these running expeditions through the most amazing, cool places like Slovenia, Morocco, you name it. And so we have a really, really cool, neat, it's just not really cool and neat in August in Austin, Texas.
It is if you're looking. You don't get the altitude training in the cooler temps like you get in Colorado, right. But if you really want the competitive advantage, come on down
and try this
see
out.
what you're made of, because the summer is nothing.
Brittle.
Yes,
Brittle.
To balk at.
What's your next run? Do you have a run on your plate or agenda?
I started my endurance racing middle packer career with an Ironman, and I will probably finish the full distance Ironman journey on April 27th.
Where at?
In the Woodlands. It'll be my 5th Ironman.
Good for you. Is that going to be your last one?
I don't like to say it's the last.
Got it.
I just don't plan on putting another race in the cart.
Okay.
My heart is telling me that it's been calling towards community involvement, taking my weekends, building the run club, investing into town, and the full distance Ironman training. It takes a lot of time.
Yes, it does. I can't imagine. Well, good luck on that race. We'll compare notes.
Yeah.
After we'll be cheering for you and pushing you forward. I'm going to do my first one. My daughter has challenged me and asked me to do a triathlon with her. So I'm going to do an Olympic distance triathlon in Austin, April 7th with my daughter. So
is that the Cap?
Yeah, it's the California Tri, I think, out on the Pedernales, I think.
You're absolutely going to love it.
So I've had to learn how to swim. My daughter was a swimmer growing up.
That's a great journey.
We've been down here at the Y downtown learning how to swim. So I've been in the pool enough now. I've got the bike conditioned up. I've only been on it a couple of times. I'm a runner as it is already, so I'm okay. I feel I'll be all right. I just don't want to drown. So I'm just trying to figure out how to get through that mile swim. But so good luck to you.
Thank you so much.
I want to thank you so much for coming on. Last question. What's the best investment that you've ever made in your life?
My sobriety.
There you go. I love it.
I really thought a lot about this.
Yeah.
And I 3 nights a week, 3 hours a night for 3 years, and in those outpatient groups and in the meetings and stuff, got me to where I am today. I do think that investing into our health will unfold everything that we can even imagine. It's I think investing into our health is a superpower.
Well, from me and all of us and your family and your friends, we are thankful that you took that step because we get to see all of you.
Oh,
and we get to know all of you.
My friend, I appreciate you, Jeff. It is an honor and a privilege, and it is a great thing to be a student of this whole journey.
Love having you on the show, my friend. You're awesome. Keep killing it with Atreyu.
Thank you,
Keep
sir.
selling shoes.
Thank you, sir.
And don't give up.
All right.
Appreciate you very much.
Yes, sir.
Have a great day.
Today's episode of Banking on Community was recorded in the Keystone Bank podcast studio located in downtown Austin. Keystone Bank opened its doors in 2018 with a maverick approach to community banking, focusing on putting clients first, and the core values of take charge, encourage creativity, lead in innovation, do what is right, and center around community. For more information, visit our website, keystone.bank.